think it's time to blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
¿Qué tal, amigos de Documentos Clasificados? Una semana más y tenemos invitado de lujo. Ya lo puede ver usted, y no es Jaime Carreño. Jaime Carreño lo va a presentar porque él no es invitado, él es de casa. Bueno, también nuestro invitado ya es de casa, porque es la segunda vez que lo entrevistamos, pero bueno, vamos a platicar con él pues de lo que sucede en este mundo fantástico de los cómics y de todo lo que conlleva este universo. Mi estimado Jaime Carreño, ¿cómo estás? Presenta a nuestro invitado.
¿Qué tal, Daniel? ¿Cómo están? ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo están todos los que nos escuchan? Espero nos escuchen correctamente. Y sí, efectivamente, tenemos un invitado que ya habíamos entrevistado anteriormente y que hizo muy bien en recibir otra invitación de parte de nosotros, el gran Steve Englehart, escritor de Marvel, de DC. Para algunos es el que escribió una de las más grandes historias de Batman, lo cual yo estoy de acuerdo. Uno de los escritores que escribió una de las series más importantes en lo que es Los Vengadores, Los Cuatro Fantásticos y un largo etcétera. Pero queremos hoy hablar con él sobre las series de televisión. Muy bien, Daniel.
Adelante, estimado Jaime, comienza la entrevista.
Steven, thank you very much for being with us again. Really nice to see you again.
Yeah, también.
Okay, Steven. Thank you. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the series that been in the TV and one movie. Hopefully you watch all of them. First of all, let's talk about Justice League. Did you see Justice League?
I did, yeah.
What's your opinion on the movie, Steve, as a professional?
It was better than I thought it might be. So I'd never watched Man of Steel, and I never watched Superman versus Batman because everybody said they're terrible, and I didn't want to waste my time on them. And I mean, everybody said they were terrible, with a few exceptions. But this thing, I thought, okay, it's a big deal. Let's watch this. So I watched it. And it was interesting. I just real quickly, but I got an invitation. I assume because of my connection to it, but I got an invitation from HBO Max saying you can watch it 3 days early at a special time. There was no indication that they were sending it to me. It just said, you can watch this if you want to. So I did watch it 3 days before everybody else did, but it's the same movie. Except when it came time for the thing to appear, there was a message saying Microsoft's servers have crashed, and so we can't show it to you. So that was supposed to be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, California time, and it was until 10 o'clock in the evening before they fixed it. So I didn't watch it that day. I watched it the next day. But anyway, I thought a lot about Snyder because I hadn't really seen his movies. I'd heard about him and so forth. And my impression was that he, they said, okay, Zach, the fans want you to do this. Here's $70 million, finish it off. And I would bet that in addition to finishing it off and making it into a movie, part of his motivation was, if I may say, Jenga, to you guys for messing with me, because anything that he shot was in that movie. And so some of those scenes were like 15 minutes long, particularly the Amazons after a while. But, some scenes that should just go boom, boom, boom. You got every detail. And I did go back then and take a look at the Joss Whedon version. And, I noticed that it was edited like a comic book, right? I mean, the scene that came to mind was when Wonder Woman sort of slides in front of all those schoolgirls while the guy's shooting at him. in the Whedon movie, it's like she starts the slide, you cut to the guy shooting. She's halfway through the slide, you cut to somebody else, she finishes the slide. It looks like you could do that, right? In the Zack Snyder version, you see the entire slide and she goes on and on and on, and the guy keeps shooting directly at her, right? I mean, he never shoots any place that she's not. And it didn't make sense. I mean, when you see it that way, you go, that would never happen, right? I mean, we're talking superhero movies here, but it's like, there was a lot of that stuff where if you had told it like a comic book, you could easily cut an hour out of that movie and have the exact same movie, except it would work better, I thought. And then the epilogues, the whole thing, you know, like here's previews for the next movie I'm going to make, except I'm not actually going to make it now. It's like everything he put on the screen. And as somebody pointed out, he made sure it would work for an IMAX viewing, except it's not on IMAX. It's for HBO Max streaming, right? I mean, everything he did was kind of like, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And you're not going to touch it, so I'm going to do that. That all said, well, what else can I say? I was really struck, particularly in the whole, let's save Superman and then go finish this movie. The dialogue sort of dialed down to comic book 101. I mean, it was like, Wonder Woman, you go stand over there. I'm going to go do this. And then that's it, right? Whedon got a lot of crap because he wrote in character stuff, but I like character stuff. And you could see in the Whedon movie that scene where Batman gets all beat up and Wonder Woman comes over and helps him out. It's like, these are two actors who are getting to actually play people. You know, you might quibble about whether it's the right tone or whatever it is, but they're characters doing things. And I thought later, you know, how boring it must have been for Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck to be reduced to saying, Wonder Woman, go stand over there. You know, at the end, I mean, because Snyder doesn't do characters, right? Snyder does big, spectacular things. So in some ways, I thought the Whedon movie was better than this but, you know, on balance, I'd say 60-40. Just, you know, the grandeur of the whole thing. But as Toscanini, the famous conductor, once said about Wagner, he said, it's quarter hours of tedium interrupted by glory, or something like that, right? And that's what I thought the movie was. You know, they'd get to these really cool scenes, but you had to really slog to get there. I thought that was my take on it. And I was astounded. You know, by the time I got to the end of 4 hours, I said, okay, good, I'm done. I've seen it. And it wasn't until people told me that I get a screen credit in it. At the end, it says, thanks to, you know, a bunch of people, including me. And I really don't know. I mean, I wrote the Justice League, I wrote Batman, but I'm not sure what was in that movie where they said, oh, we need to thank this guy. So the whole thing was kind of mysterious to me. Does that answer your question? What did you guys think?
Daniel, ¿tu impresión?
Sí. Mira, al respecto de lo que comentó, yo quiero preguntarle, Jaime, porque, y ojalá pueda expresar bien mi pregunta, porque nosotros siempre creímos, o siempre queremos más bien, que el cómic, o que la película se adapte al cómic. Ahora está pasando algo muy peculiar. Al parecer, el cine está agarrando elementos para pasarlos a los cómics. Pero yo no quiero tocar ese tema, sino que el cine ahora está tocando elementos para tratar de llegar a la cuestión televisiva, porque escuchaba lo que mencionaba de HBO y de la cuestión cinematográfica y de la duración de la película. Pero ¿no será que estamos viendo, o no será que Snyder se adelantó un poco a su tiempo porque hizo una película de 4 horas que más bien parece para televisión? O sea, ¿no será que estamos a punto de ver un cambio en la historia, no nada más de los cómics, sino del cine?
That's a good question. Well, Stephen, what Daniel is saying, a little bit of a nutshell, he's noticing a trend where now the movies are bringing elements to the comics. But in this case in particular, it seems like maybe we're going to see a trend where most of these epic movies are going to be filmed for the TV, for HBO Max or Disney Plus, where it's almost like this case is a big movie and the other ones are series that cannot be done in one single movie.
Right.
Do you see that as a possible trend, or do you agree on that take?
Well, I wonder about that because, there's a theory that once everybody's gotten herd immunity, we're all going to go back to the movie theaters. And I'm not convinced that that's necessarily the case. There's something to be said for being in a movie theater and seeing it on a big screen and all that good stuff. There's also something to be said about worrying that you might get an illness if you go. And I've noticed now when, there's, some news story about here's a new movie that's debuting this week. If it's debuting on Netflix or Amazon or something, I'm like, okay, cool. When they say only in theaters, I kind of go, well, I'm not going to the theater, so I don't get to see it. Now, in the future, who knows? But I wonder if this is a turning point for people, that people have big screen TV, not everybody, but I mean, as a general concept, big screen TVs are cheaper than they ever were, sound bars, all that kind of stuff. I mean, you can stop it and go to the bathroom if you need to. I wonder if the convenience will outweigh. So I don't have an answer to the question, really. But I have the same question, really, as to whether, and of course, if the trend is toward television, then they will be making movies with that in mind. I mean, again, Zack Snyder made his thing specifically to be seen on an IMAX, which, maybe 2 years from now, maybe a year from now, people will go to the IMAX and they'll see it. I don't know, but it was like, it wasn't made for TV, but TV is where it was. I think Black Widow is going to debut on Disney Plus now, right? I mean,
right.
After all these years, Tenet is finally going to come to HBO Max after it's run through the theaters. It's and people do watch WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Flash, Arrow, all these things on television, right? I mean, people are used to seeing this stuff on television now. So a long answer to say, I have no idea.
Well, yo creo que está de acuerdo contigo, Daniel, que parece ser, pero veremos. Okay, now let's switch. Now that we're talking a little bit about TV, you were involved in the Avengers and in Wanda and Vision relationship and how it evolved. And if I'm not wrong, you even wrote West Coast Avengers, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's right.
So, because I read them. So tell me, what's your opinion of WandaVision?
I liked WandaVision. At the beginning, I thought the first episode, the pretty much straightforward 50s comedy thing, they needed better joke writers. I mean, it wasn't hilarious. And I thought, how's this going to go? But it was, it moved along and it had a story and their homage to old sitcoms notwithstanding. But I was surprised. I mean, in the series that I did, Vision of the Scarlet Witch with Richard Howell, they got married, they moved to the suburbs, they had kids, Agatha Harkness showed up, Pietro showed up. I mean, it was all, the fantasy in WandaVision was basically taken directly from the stories that we did. So I was pleased about that. And then I thought, the way they it was clear that they were going to go on from there, and they went on from there, and it, and that made sense. I thought the ending was problematic. I mean, she did enslave an entire town, and they were all in agony because of it. And then she just sort of like, well, my bad, and then left.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I'm sure that was so that we could, because she's going to be in the next Doctor Strange movie, and so they have to move her in that direction, whatever. I thought that could have been handled a little better, and I did think that the whole thing was sort of done well enough that I kind of had the feeling that ending was, Kevin Feige going, it has to go there, so that's where it's going to go. But I like Wanda and the Vision. I always liked Wanda and the Vision as characters, and I was, they're, it's not exactly the same thing that they're doing, but it was pretty close, and it was, and they were likable, and I mean, Wanda kind of came and went, but
And you wrote about the kids until John Byrne came, and
I know. Yes, I know.
What do you think about that thing?
I hated that.
Personally, I like it. It. It was fun for me, the John Byrne part, but I don't know what's your opinion. You didn't like it?
No, I didn't like it. I mean, because I get into my characters. I believe in my characters, right? And the whole idea, I mean, when I took over Wanda and the Vision from Roy Thomas, he'd established that they were a romantic team. And I took that to the next step where they got married. And then I took that to the next step where they moved to the suburbs. And then I took that to the next step where they had kids, because it was all like what married people do, right? And that's what I was exploring. And so, I had a personal feeling for Wanda and Vision and Tommy and Billy, right? And so, John Byrne coming in and saying, I'm going to totally blow all that up. I didn't like it, as a reader, as a reader, I didn't like it. As the guy who had taken it to that point, I didn't like it. In other words, there was no level on which I liked it. But comics is comics. And, when somebody stops writing a book, somebody else starts writing the book. But Byrne has Byrne, he has a history of showing up and going, now that I'm here, it's completely different. Whereas my take was always, now that I'm here, I'm going to take whatever's here. And if I want to go someplace else, that's a story, but not just like, and blow it up and here I am. So that's my,
your take.
And now I hate you forever because you liked it.
Sounds fun. Okay, Daniel.
Bueno, yo quiero preguntarle desde su punto de vista profesional, lo que estamos viendo en WandaVision se acerca más, o es lo que más quiere que Disney se vea de los héroes, o es lo que Disney cree que es lo que quiere la gente, o es lo que quieren los editores y los escritores de los cómics. ¿A qué se parece más lo que estamos viendo en WandaVision? ¿A la gente que adquiere cómics, a los escritores o a Disney? ¿A qué se parece más?
So, Steven, Daniel's question is, what you see in WandaVision is things that the writers from the movies want to give to the comic fans.
Mm-hmm.
It is what the writers wants to do, or is what the Disney wants to take us and start accepting that as a new, as their universe, as their ideas, as their story.
Well, I think I've been pretty impressed throughout most of the Disney stuff that they're very good about reading the old stories, deciding what they like, giving credit when they do that. So my sense, and I can't imagine that's a bunch of different people. So all doing the same thing. So I assume that's Kevin Feige and Disney sort of deciding what should be in it. As I say, in general, pretty much all the way through, I have thought that they've made the right decisions. I mean, I've talked probably last time about Mantis, that it's not my Mantis. They changed her, you know.
Mhm.
Once again, I liked my Mantis, you know. But in general, I thought they were giving the people what they wanted, and that the Disney understood what the people wanted. That's why they were giving it to them and could give them to it. Before we're over here, we're going to talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I think is a piece of crap. I think they totally missed the boat on Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's the first one. I was trying to think back. Sorry, I'm jumping out of order here, but I mean, I was trying to think back on the Netflix series, and everybody liked 3 of them, and everybody said Iron Fist, not so much. So this isn't the first time that Disney has missed the mark, in my opinion. But, you know, with those exceptions, I think what Disney wants to give you and what we would like to get are pretty similar.
Okay.
Oye, Jaime, y aprovechando su respuesta, perdón que me interrumpa y me atraviese en tu pregunta.
Adelante.
Nada más le preguntaría entonces, desde su punto de vista, hablando de series de televisión, ¿cuál es la que a él le parece la que mejor se ha podido adaptar a lo que es el entorno de los cómics?
So, based on your answer, Stephen, and speaking of the TV series, which one, in your opinion, adapts better to what the comics are, or the best adaptation of your favorite, the ones you've seen it?
Just my favorite series?
Yeah.
No, espérame, no es su favorita, es la que más se adapta a lo que es los cómics, la que le parece la más perfecta.
Okay.
Who did the best adaptation?
Yeah, best adaptation, exactly.
Well, how many have? Well, we have the Netflix series, and we have these 2 Disney series. That's all that I'm thinking of that we have. Probably Jessica Jones was the closest to what was there. Daredevil was close. Luke Cage, sort of. I mean, you know, I liked Luke Cage. I wrote Luke Cage, and I approve of the Luke Cage, but it wasn't a straight adaptation. And then WandaVision was like taking off from the stuff. So I guess Jessica Jones would be closer even than Daredevil. Daredevil was kind of Frank Miller's Daredevil, which was okay, you know. But I thought Jessica Jones, she was such a specific character, right? I mean, there hasn't been a lot of different takes on Jessica Jones. So you either get it right or you don't. And I thought that they did. You know?
Oh, well, that's a good point. That's a good point. I never thought about that. Okay, now let's talk about, you already mentioned it, that Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you just don't like it. Why?
It's like, to me, it's like it was written by refrigerator magnets or something, you know. It's just they kind of go, well, let's take this thing and let's take this thing and let's take this thing and we'll put them together. And is there a story? No, there really isn't. But, you know, here's Baron Zemo, here's Sharon Carter, here's the lady from Black Panther, I forget her name. It's that, to me, is like fan service without any thought behind it. It's like, here, you want to see this character? You want to see this character? Fine. But why are they there? What are they doing? How is this working out? There's no point of view. If you think back all the way back to WandaVision, right? I mean, there was a consistent story being told, right? There was a point of view, even though you had the cat or whatever her name was, the scientist from Thor come in, you know, and even, I mean, there were people who came in, but they came in and they did something, you know, they were there for a reason and they had a point. It just sort of goes on. You just sort of sit there for 45 minutes and you watch things happen, but again, we're talking my opinion, right?
Yeah, of course.
But I have more sympathy right up until the girl with the red hair blew up the building with all the people in it to show that she's actually evil. I had more sympathy for her than I do for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They don't like each other. They never get past it. They just keep sniping at each other, blah, blah, blah. Whereas she wants to feed immigrants and, and take care of people in camps and stuff. It's like, I don't know. She sounds like the better person in this whole thing. And then this is, right in the middle of the conversation that Americans, maybe Canadians are having at this time, maybe everybody's having at this time, but about race. If the Falcon is an Avenger, he works for the United States government. If he were just a random black guy and he went to the bank, it's quite possible that the white banker in Louisiana would say, no, not giving you a loan. He doesn't need a loan. He's the Falcon, right? It was like, I'm going to put a race thing into this, but it doesn't work in the Marvel universe. When I came back to Marvel in the 80s, I had left Marvel in the 70s. I came back in the 80s. Jim Shooter was the editor at that point, and Shooter had rules. And one rule was you don't call anybody a supervillain, because in the real world, nobody talks about supervillains. And I said to him, Jim, that's true. But in the Marvel world, there's Dr. Doom, right? I mean, people would make up a word to distinguish between somebody who robbed a liquor store and Dr. Doom, whether they called him, it's like, so in that reality, they would talk about supervillains, right? And so that's what I saw in the Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's like, in Marvel reality, the Falcon doesn't need a loan. And if he wanted one, he could get it through the government or whatever that. So trying to impose a legitimate problem on a world that doesn't have that, or at least a character that doesn't have that problem, that also was like, you're not thinking it through. You're not living in that reality. I'm totally against white bankers not giving black people loans. I mean, that's not the question, right?
I understand.
It doesn't make sense in this context. And the whole thing is kind of like that, where it's like the people who are writing this one, they don't get comics. They don't understand the rhythms, the relationships, the flow, it's like, just sort of like somebody took a bunch of pieces and stuck them together and said, okay, let's do that. That's my opinion.
Okay, that's good.
You like it?
No, I like it. I know, well, by the time we're taping this, obviously we're still watching that, so we need to see how
Right.
it develop. But one of the things that I like on this series is the point of people thinking, what would happen to a real people if it disappears 5 years and then comes back? And
yeah,
can't imagine it's becoming difficult to understand that now I don't have a credit, but okay, I need a credit card. Well, in order to have a credit card, you have to have credit history. But how do I make credit history? Oh, you need a credit card. It's chicken and egg. And it's like, in that part, I like it. The issue on the racial thing when Falcon and the Winter Soldier, when Falcon is visit the old Capitán America, remember that one? In Atlanta, when they come and see and looking for him, is this guy attacking you?
Right.
Because of his race?
Right.
I like that point because I see it real.
Sure.
But I see your point. I understand your point. Daniel?
Well, no, I would agree with you. If it's just a white man and a black man arguing in a black neighborhood, I can see the cops rolling up on that. Although I thought two cops in the middle of a poor neighborhood in Baltimore, that seems a little over the top, but okay, fine. And
I'm glad that
I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing with the reality of race relations in the world. I'm just saying that two guys arguing on the street, that might get the cops. Not getting a loan, I don't think so. If it's the Falcon who's doing that,
and especially because the guy recognized him, correct?
Yeah,
Recognizing him at the end. No, I understand your point. Daniel.
Yeah.
Sí, ya se nos está acabando el tiempo, mi estimado Steve y Jaime. Yo quiero preguntarle, y ojalá la respuesta sea lo más breve posible, ¿qué piensa Steve acerca de los temas inclusivos, no nada más en las películas, sino también en los cómics? ¿Por qué vemos a personajes de otras razas, de otras preferencias, cuando pues originalmente no eran de estas? O sea, que ¿él está a favor o está en contra de esta postura?
Stephen, I think we talked about this before, and it's related to the last comment. You can be brief on this because of the time. What's your opinion of the new movement where they're more inclusive, in the movies, in the comics, where now people are, changing the story? A guy now who was maybe Caucasian, now he's African American or Asian. He was straight, now he's gay, and the guys now eat Latin people, etc. What's your opinion of that?
I'm in favor of that. I mean, I'm I'm an old school liberal, I mean, I'm in favor of that, but I'm also a comic book writer. So when I see something that I think is not working as a comic, I'll mention it. But yeah, I'm Shang-Chi movie coming out, right? Mm-hmm. Jim Starlin and I created Shang-Chi, but when they did Shang-Chi, they wanted to do an all Asian production. Fine, it makes sense. That I'm in favor of that. I mean, I'm in favor of as many. I'm not only an old school liberal, I'm an old school white guy. I mean, what can I tell you? But I mean, I never, and I would hope that my body of work would indicate that I never had a problem with people of other races or other persuasions or other sexes. Or when I was first getting started, another writer said to me, well, the only people that we can ever really write are white men. And I thought, really? I thought, I'm just getting started here, but I thought writing, you were supposed to be able to write anybody. And so I tried, at least, throughout the years. And so I'm not, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Good. Okay, Daniel.
Estimado Jaime, pues ya casi estamos por terminar. Una última pregunta, si quieres, también de manera muy breve.
Muy bien. No, I'm okay. Stephen, I just want to ask you one brief question, if you can give me a quick answer on that. If you have the opportunity to make a movie, don't you think The New Gods will be a good option?
The New Gods?
Yeah.
Well, I think The New Gods, you're asking me for my opinions on these things, and I have opinions. I always thought Kirby was great at plotting, but not great at characterization, and so I always thought when The New Gods debuted, I was a comic book reader, and that's how old I am. And I was really looking forward to it. And then it was disappointing to me because the characters never really developed. So I think I think you could take The New Gods and do the characterizations but live with all the structure and everything that was there. And yes, I think it could make a great movie.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Daniel.
Nada más no nos ha dicho cuál es su cómic favorito, ¿eh? No lo dijo la vez pasada y esta tampoco.
Ah, ¿su cómic favorito?
Sí.
Oh, what is your favorite comic of all time, Steve?
I mean, there's been a bunch of them that I've really liked. I mean, I could tell you about the first Batman I ever read, which was just no better or worse than any other Batman at the time, but it was the first one I read, and so I'm like, I'm into this.
If you have to
Neil Adams work in the 70s, whether it was Dead Man or Batman, those were all fabulous. I don't know that I have one,
Your Captain America. Secret Empire. Come
No
on.
lo induzcas,
The
Jaime.
stuff that I wrote? Are you talking about the stuff that I wrote?
No, I'm just saying they should be also one of your favorites, but anyway, that's okay.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I tended to like, that's the thing, you know, I mean, I like comics. And so any comic that I did, I found a way to like it. And so, I mean, the question I usually get asked is, what's the favorite one you did? And I don't have an answer for that either, because, you know, I mean, how am I supposed to compare Doctor Strange to Captain America to the Green Lantern to the Silver Surfer? I mean, you know, they're all, each one of them I got into, which is why I was sad when they killed Wanda and Vision's kids, you know, because I was into it.
Okay.
Muy buena respuesta, muy política, pero buena respuesta, mi estimado.
No,
It's a straight answer.
It's, yeah.
Okay.
Bueno, pues amigos, Jaime, mi estimado Steve, es tiempo de despedirnos. Queremos agradecer a toda la gente que se ha conectado con nosotros, que ha seguido estos podcasts, que ha estado muy de cerca. Ya sabe usted, acercamos a este tipo de personajes con ustedes, gente que se dedica a escribir, a dibujar, a hacer historias, a editar, gente que está muy cerca en el mundo de los cómics, lo hemos tenido cerca para ustedes. Y mi estimado Jaime, pues no sé si algo quieras agregar, Steve.
No, thank you, Steve. Just thank you again for your time, and I really appreciate your time, and hopefully you enjoy at the end Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
I hope so. I'm not convinced, but I hope so.
I hope so. That's good.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, nos vemos hasta la próxima.